Welcome back. By now we should have our bottom tile ready so that it can touch each one of the pegs and end up at the bottom position. And it should have something that looks like this, nice and neat, nice and tidy, and I've just changed mine so they match up. Left peg comes first, middle and right. And you notice, and you can go and check this yourself on yours, but the X and Y for each one should match the X of the pegs and the Y that we started off with. Okay, that's the bottom tile. Now let's move on to the middle tile. Middle tile is going to be a little bit trickier because instead of just going to the bottom, we need to check to see if the bottom tile is in the way. Because remember, our middle tile can rest on top of the bottom tile, but it can't go on top of the top tile. So we need to check to see where that bottom tile is. But first, same thing as we did here, we need to check if it's touching the peg or not. So how do we do that? Well, we used our forever, we used our if statement, and we used this. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the middle peg again, and then I'm going to leave you do the left and the right pegs. The middle peg, we're going to have forever, have our if, we're going to have our operator, our AND operator, and put our not in there while we're here, sensing if we're touching the sprite, and if the mouse is not down. Change that to middle peg. Okay, and if this is true, this is where now our if else comes in, because there's two conditions that could be true after this. If we are touching the middle peg, that's the wrong one. If we're touching the middle peg and the mouse is down, notice nothing's happening because A, there hasn't been filled in, and B, I haven't clicked the green flag. So if I'm touching this, it could be there's nothing there, in which case we'll end up at the bottom. It could be that this is in the way, in which case we'll end up resting on top, like so. We need to check for both of these conditions, or one of these conditions, and see what happens then. And now remember, this is where our if else comes in. So all we've done, we've checked to see if we're touching the peg. If we are, we need to check to see if this is in the way. If it is, if this condition becomes true, we do this. If it's not true, then we do this. So let's do this first one, because it's easier. If there's nothing in the way, it'll end up at the bottom. And you know what? We've already told ourselves where the bottom is going to be, since these three tiles are roughly, if not exactly the same width. We know where the X is going to end up. The X is going to end up being 0, because that's where our peg is, in the middle of our peg, goes through the middle of our tile, so X is going to be 0. And we've used the Y for this one. This is our bottom tile rests along the bottom, and that Y is minus 131. So it would serve that we could use the same number for that. If not, we can come back and we can change that later. But for now, let's leave it as that. Now this means that if we end up touching the middle peg, we've released it. This hasn't been true yet, therefore we go to the bottom. Okay? So what this is going to be checking for is whether this is in the way or not. How do we check if this is in the way? Well, we know, because we've already told it, we've already done it, where our bottom tile will end up if it's touching our middle peg. It's going to end up in this position, 0 and minus 131. We can then check, using our middle tile, to see if this is there. If our bottom tile is not at this position, it can't be on our middle peg, it's either on the left or the right pegs, and therefore our middle tile will go to the bottom. Okay? So we're going to go back to our sensing, and we're going to find this one, backdrop of stage. Sounds peculiar, but if we change stage, now we can change it to any one of our sprites. Change it to bottom, and backdrop changes to X position, which we can also change to be any of these. So I'm going to have X position of bottom, and I want Y position of bottom. Okay, we can set these two blocks because this block and this block will take these numbers of this. We just need to check what they're equal to. If they're equal to what we want them to be equal to, then our condition is true. If not, then this is true. Okay? So we do that by going to operators and using our equals. So x equals and y equals. Now what we'll do, when we run these, Scratch will tell us what the x position of bottom is, and then we can check to see if it's equal to 0. So if this is true, great. We can also check the y position of bottom. So Scratch will grab this number, and then we can check to see if it's equal to minus 131, because that's where it's going to be if it's on the bottom. All we need to do now is check them both at the same time. We can do that because we can use our AND. That's what we were doing previously. Put our AND in there. That goes in there. That goes in there. Now, much like the above one, middle peg and mouse not down or not mouse down, we can check. So if the x position, so if the number in here is equal to 0, and if the y position, or number in here, both of those for the bottom tile, remember, is equal to this whole statement becomes true. And if this whole statement becomes true, then we execute whatever we're going to put in here. If this statement is not true, then our bottom tile cannot be here. It has to be either here or here, because there is no way that our bottom tile can end up anywhere else because of these three. So if it's not here, it goes to this position. If it is true and it is here, then we need to put it on top. And we can figure that out by using our glide again and using the same principle we applied to the bottom. So the x's are going to match up with the pegs, and the y's are going to be their start position. And since this is not down here, it's just going to move across. The y position should be equal to whatever it starts off as, so minus 108. And the x position, will be the same as the x position of our peg. In this case, it's going to be 0. Okay? So I can run this, I can check it. So if I come over here, it's touching the middle peg, I'm going to release it. The bottom tile is not in the way. So this condition, this first one, will be true. This second condition will be false. And if this second condition is false, then it'll go to 0 minus 131. Now we might need to change these numbers in a second. We'll find out now. Okay, that looks good. Doesn't look like we have to change those, so that's fine. We know that this works. So we've touched the middle peg, the mouse has been released. The bottom tile is not at this position, therefore this whole statement is false, and this becomes our result. Now we'll start our game again. Now this time, that's in the way, and we click here. Excellent. So now we've touched the middle peg, our mouse has been released, this statement becomes true. X position of bottom is equal to 0, and the y position of bottom is equal to minus 131. We can check that by clicking here and looking at these. So that statement there becomes true, and in that case, our middle tile ends up here. Okay? So that's how we program our middle tile. Nice and simple, straightforward. So like the previous one, like with the bottom tile, I'm going to leave you to do the left and the right pegs. Follow the same steps. Remember, the x and y positions are already written down. You just have to find the corresponding ones. X of bottom equals and y of bottom equals, and then decide where it's going to end up. Okay, so give that a go for the left and the right pegs, and when you're ready, click to the next slide, the next video, and we can go over how to do the top one, which is the most complicated, but it follows the same steps. In fact, it's just a case of adding in one more check. Okay, give that a go. I'll see you in the next video.